everyone, Alex here. I know it's been a while since my last video, but it's time for an album review. Today I'm going to be talking about the latest Deftones album, titled Gore. Deftones are a Sacramento, Californian metal band. It's hard to believe, but they've been at it for more than 25 years already. At the beginning of their career, they were kind of lumped into the category of nu metal, alongside bands such as Korn and Limp Bizkit. Growing up, I was a huge fan of both Korn and Limp Bizkit, but Deftones was never a band I was really all that interested in. As I finally grew out of listening to nu metal music, eventually I came to latch onto Deftones music. The first record that I really got into by Deftones was their 2006 album, Saturday Night Wrist, an album that I consider to be incredibly underrated in their discography. And the reason I got into this album so much was because I really dug the more ethereal side of their sound. Not that I didn't like the heavier side of the band, I just always liked the way that they found a balance between the beauty and the brutality. Their albums over the years have tended to either focus on one side or the other on that spectrum. On albums such as their self-titled and Diamond Eyes, they tended to focus more on the heavier elements, but on albums like White Pony, Saturday Night Wrist, or 2012's Koi No Yokan, they seem to be adding more shoegazey elements into their music. 4 years later, after Koi No Yokan, we now have their 8th studio record, Gore, and I would say that this album tends to focus more on the softer side of their sound. This record contains some of the heaviest moments they've ever performed, and the most ambient and atmospheric songs they've ever made. I'll also say that this album has some of the most abstract melodies sung by singer Chino Moreno, and it also has some of their strangest song structures. A few months ago, they released the single Prayers/Triangles, and I was somewhat impressed by this song. I think that the verse melodies are really fantastic. I like how the guitar has the very 90s-esque reverb and flange on it. There was nothing really inherently special about this song that jumped out and made me all that excited for this record. One of the reasons I feel this way is because the chorus on this song barely gets off the ground. It's very unimaginative. The second single released from this album was a track called Doomed User. At first I kind of hated this song. I thought that as a standalone track, this song was no good at all. But in the context of the record, I feel like it is much, much stronger. The verses on this song alternate between very heavy chugged riffs with Chino having absolutely wretched vocals on here, mixed with these power metal riffs that remind me of Around the Fur era Deftones. I also find the hook on this song to be incredibly catchy. Even though I did say that I tend to like the more ethereal elements of the band's music, I tend to gravitate towards a lot of the heavier moments on this record. I like the very chaotic nature of the track Acid Hologram. This song has verses with Chino's very sinister-like melodies combined with some dissonant guitars. There are certain vocal phrases that Chino sings throughout this song and many other tracks on the record that they aren't exactly a chorus, but he finds a way for them to become a hook on their own. This track also has a really great atmospheric bridge, but it kind of ends too soon. I wish it would have progressed a little farther in that direction instead of going just right back to the chorus again. The next track, Geometric Headdress, is another song that tends to mix these very dissonant qualities with very beautiful parts too. The verse on the song has a very anxious feeling to it, but once it breaks into the chorus, it's very lightweight. It's probably one of the best chorus melodies on this entire album. The track Heart/Wires was another single that was released off this album. It begins with a minute of some atmospheric ambient noise. The melody that Chino sings on this song is pretty decent. It's really not one of the best melodies that he's ever sung. I want to say that this is one of the best songs on the album, but it's held back by, once again, another chorus that just kind of lacks imagination. By the third minute of this 5.5-minute song, you've heard everything that it has to offer. It doesn't really progress beyond what you've already heard. This album has a really strong beginning, but I think it begins to falter in the middle a little bit. It's not because I think any of the tracks on this album are really all that bad. I think that there are just a few that come off as a little forgettable. Take, for example, the track Pittura Infamante. if I'm pronouncing that right. This one has more of an upbeat vibe to it. It's one of the heavier tracks, but it doesn't really display any aggressive qualities. I think that the vocal melodies in this track just really don't grab me all that much. Another track that I don't really love from this album is the next song, Xenon. I do think that the chorus on the song is fantastic. Once it gets there, I feel like the song kind of soars, but the verse riffs that sound like 1994 Korn just really aren't doing that much for me. Then we have the song Let's Meet in Real Life. This song feels like it is two separate ideas that really didn't mix together all that well. The first half of this song has a verse with a really dark vibe. I think the instrumentation on this part is really interesting. However, the vocal melody and the lyrics that Chino's sing on this just kind of come off as kind of clumsy. It picks up around the 2-minute mark where it transforms into almost a completely different song. The chorus on this track almost reminds me exactly like the chorus from the last track, Xenon. The streak of bad tracks ends at the title track, Gore. This song begins with some weird atmospheric noises and some drums from Abe Cunningham. I find the verse melody on this track to be very catchy. Then the chorus comes in and Chino sounds like an absolute maniac on this song. Combining that with Stephen Carpenter's riffs, this might be one of the heaviest choruses that Deftones has ever produced. The next track, Phantom Bride, is also another one of the album's highlights. I think the echoey guitar riff and Chino's falsetto vocals on the song make it a standout for sure. I really enjoy the echoey guitar riff on this track. Towards the middle of this track, there's a guitar solo, something that is pretty uncommon on Deftones songs, and it just so happens to be played by Alice in Chains' own Jerry Cantrell. This could be one of Deftones' best tracks ever. However, I think the chorus on this song holds it back, just like the chorus on Prayers/Triangles did on that track. Overall, I think this is a really solid album by Deftones. I like how some of the more shoegazy and soft elements of their sound were more prominent on this record. Even though they softened things up, I feel like every member of the band got to shine in some way or another. The rhythm section on this record was spectacular, and as usual, the duo of Stephen Carpenter and Chino Moreno was absolutely fantastic. It's really good to see that even on their 8th studio album, Deftones is able to come back with a sound that is familiar to the fans, but they allow themselves to progress each record. My only criticisms of this record were there were a few forgettable songs, some of the choruses were a little unimaginative, and I guess I was hoping for a little more progression. After all these years, Deftones has been really consistent, but sometimes I want them to completely surprise me, which they haven't done yet. So I'm feeling a 7.5 on this album. I thought it was really solid. I think you should check it out if you've never heard of the band Deftones. It might not be their best record, but it tends to be more of a grower for me. Each time I listen to it, I think I've liked it a little bit more. Have you heard this record? If you have, let me know what you think about it. If there are any particular new releases you want me to review, let me know in the comment box below. Till next time.